This Civic Media podcast is sponsored by UW Organ and Tissue Donation. Organ donations are desperately needed, and now is the right time to become an organ donor. Talk to your family. Get the dot. Save lives. Go to heroicdeed.com.
This is your WLCX Daily News Roundup for the Eagle 1490 AM in La Crosse.
For AM 1490 WLCX, I'm Jimmy Kuska. Tomorrow is the start of gun deer hunting season in Wisconsin. With more, here's Civic Media's Derek Tritz.
Wisconsin's beloved 9-day gun deer season opens this Saturday, November 23rd. Our hunters harvested about 174,000 deer in 2023, down about 17% from the year prior. This year, however, hunters have some advantages, according to State Deer Program Specialist Jeff Pritzel.
The mild winter that we experienced last year. And what that means to the deer herd, this year is higher fawn productivity, higher fawn survival from the previous year. And so that means, more deer on the landscape to a certain degree. And also as it relates to bucks, their antler development will be a little bit better this year because they came out of the winter in such good physical shape. That means they can devote a little bit more energy to antler development. So we should see above average antler development. That'll be nice to see for those that are seeing and getting a chance to harvest deer.
As per usual, hunters should be on the lookout for chronic wasting disease, or CWD for short. With more information, here's DNR herd health specialist Aaron Larson.
So CWD sampling is still available statewide. Anywhere that a hunter harvests a deer in the state, they can get it submitted for CWD sampling for free. However, we do have priority areas this fall that we are especially interested in receiving samples from. So these are around newer detections of wild or farm-raised captive positive detections that are in portions of central and northern Wisconsin.
Hunters should also be on the lookout for elk, as elk populations in Wisconsin have increased. It isn't uncommon for elk to be misidentified as white-tailed deer during the season, but the DNR wants to keep the elk population intact. Information about how to identify elk for accurate reporting can be found online through the Wisconsin DNR's website. Safety is always a priority during hunting season, and last year there were no fatalities. Still, hunters should remember gun safety fundamentals and to wear their blaze orange. Additional hunter safety information can be found on the Wisconsin DNR's website.
You can find more information on the Wisconsin DNR website. Fallout continues in western Wisconsin after a Minnesota poultry producer went bankrupt, leaving farmers in 3 states on the hook for hundreds of thousands of chickens with no money or food to take care of them. Now, barns sit empty and farmers are out of work. Congressman Derek Van Orden criticized the USDA for a lack of accountability and said his office hadn't heard from the agency about $50 million that it gave to the poultry producer a year and a half ago in the form of federal grants. State governments in Minnesota and Iowa stepped in and made farmers euthanize the birds, but here in Wisconsin, no law exists for this type of situation, so some farmers took to giving the chickens away instead. In Trumpereau County, that amounted to tens of thousands of free chickens, but also tens of thousands of dollars worth of feed, with no relief coming from either the state or federal government. The poultry barn owners said that they've been in contact with Van Orden and Senator Tammy Baldwin about the situation. Between Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa, nearly 50 farmers were affected and nearly 2 million chickens were killed or given away. La Crosse County is doing its mandated audit of voting machines today. Both state and federal law require that counties check its voting equipment after every general election. The Wisconsin Election Commission randomly chose the town of Campbell wards 1 through 5 and city of La Crosse wards 16, 23, and 24 for the audit. In 2022, La Crosse County had a perfect score in its audit. Canvassing was completed across the state earlier this month, and election certification will be wrapped up by the end of the month. Snow and rain fell across the state this past week, slightly improving drought in some areas while bringing the season's first snowfall to most places. With more, here's Civic Media meteorologist Brittany Merlot.
Areas in the Fox Valley and Lakeshore picked up the most, coming down heavy at times and dropping visibility drastically. Totals piled up for most areas at around 2 to 5 inches. But in Slinger and Beaver Dam, reports hit a high of 6.8 inches, well over a half a foot. With winter weather advisories alongside wind advisories, waves crashed along the shores of the Great Lakes at heights reaching 12 feet, pushing gale warnings into effect as well. Now, lake enhancement was the main player in the snow piles because the colder air rushed over the warmer waters, and winds were clocked gusting up to 46 miles per hour in Door County's Gills Rock. Flipping to rain through the afternoon, a majority of it will melt, but the storm was needed. 46% of the state is still in a drought. So this will help areas in the southeast the most, where severe drought lingers in Janesville and moderate conditions extend into Milwaukee. However, this leaves far northern parts of the state still in a severe drought because they missed out on some of the heavier totals this round. I'm meteorologist Brittany Merlot.
It'll stay dry and cool through the middle of next week, according to the National Weather Service in La Crosse. Voters across Wisconsin approved a record number of school referendums this year. With more, here's Civic Media's Savannah Tomei-Olson.
Voters chose to increase their own property taxes by a record total of $4.4 billion this year. 169 referendums were approved, benefiting 145 school districts. Denise Gomer-Hutchinson with the Wisconsin Public Education Network says districts statewide are forced to make tough choices.
The first responsibility of our public schools across the state is to educate children and to take care of the kids and the families that they serve every single day. So that means any available funds that public schools have, they put towards educating children. And so if that means a boiler has to be patched rather than replaced, that's what they're going to do.
School funding from the state hasn't even kept up with inflation most years. It did go up by $325 per student last year, but the gap is still much bigger than that to even meet inflation. State Superintendent Jill Underly has announced she'll be asking for $4 billion in spending for the state's public schools. But that plan needs to be approved after the new legislature takes office in January, and that legislature has a Republican majority.
70% of referendums were passed in the fall election. You can take Civic Media with you anywhere you go. Download the free Civic Media app on your device's app store or at civicmedia.us/app. From the Western Wisconsin Civic Media Newsroom, I'm Jimmy Kuska for AM 1490 WLCX and lacrosseeagle.com.
The Packers missing some players. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports. The Green Bay Packers host the 49ers at Lambeau Field, but head coach Matt LaFleur says they'll likely be without two of their best defensive starters. Cornerback Jair Alexander has a torn PCL, suffered 3 weeks ago in Jacksonville. Then at Wednesday's practice, rookie linebacker Edgerrin Cooper pulled a hamstring.
Did not practice for Jair and Edgerrin Cooper.
Any concern about Sunday for him?
Yes.
Kickoff at 3:25. College football, Wisconsin heads to Nebraska to play the Cornhuskers at Memorial Stadium. Game time tomorrow, 2:30. Nebraska 1.5-point favorites. NBA, it's the Bucks and the Pacers tonight in Milwaukee.
Okay, we have an incredible team coming in. Indiana beat us, I think, 4 or 5 times last year. No, actually, no. Way more. 7, 8 times. We got to play defense. We got to move the ball. They want to play fast. We got to sprint back. We got to take guys serious. But we're trending towards the right direction right now, so I'm happy.
That's Giannis Antetokounmpo with sports. I'm Mike Clemens.
On your entertainment beat, I'm Pete Schwaba. So how do you stop getting offered annoying roles in rom-coms that pay you $15 million? If you're Matthew McConaughey, you make a stand and say no thank you and move your family to a ranch in Texas. On the Good Trouble podcast, McConaughey said he had to leave Hollywood because of rom-com roles. The Dazed and Confused star said it was a scary move, and at one point he thought he might have to get another job, like teach at a high school, until he found out they make nowhere near $15 million. Having summers off only goes so far. If your favorite Ghostbuster was Ray Stantz, this might bring you down. Dan Aykroyd says he has no interest in playing the role again. The Saturday Night Live alum and original cast member has played the character over the course of 40 years and says the franchise is in good hands with actors like Paul Rudd and Carrie Coon moving forward. Glicked's weekend is here, and Wicked and Gladiator have high hopes for a box office splash. Wicked is expected to be the box office winner, with Universal Studios hoping for a $100 to $110 million opener. Paramount is hoping Gladiator 2 pulls in about $65 million, which would be a healthy start for a film that cost $250 million to make. Even those healthy estimates would have this twosome fall short of Barbenheimer's opening weekend, which pulled in $235 million a year and a half ago. Actress Rosemarie DeWitt recently appeared on the Drew Barrymore Show and said her husband, Ron Livingston, was so despised for his role as Jack Berger on Sex and the City that he couldn't even walk in New York City without rabid fans yelling and screaming at him. Ironically, when Livingston wanders through an office, he gets constant reminders about his TPS reports. Guy can't catch a break. If the Academy Awards have any meaning at all, they will nominate Denis Villeneuve for Best Director for Dune 2. Those are the words of actor Josh Brolin, who seems serious, adding he might quit acting altogether if his friend is not nominated for Best Director. Yeah, me too. The first Dune received 10 Oscar nominations in 2022, but not for Best Director, which obviously does not sit well with the No Country for Old Men actor. Thespians do tend to be a bit dramatic, but I hope Brolin doesn't quit acting. He's pretty good at it. Those of you who are shower indifferent, love camping in mud, and would like a shot at a serious injury might be interested to know that headliners for 2025's Coachella have been announced. Lady Gaga, Green Day, Post Malone, and Travis Scott will perform, and there will be an appearance by Yo Gabba Gabba. Can't hardly wait to not attend. For more showbiz fun, tune into Nightlight with me, Pete Schwaba, weeknights from 6 to 8 p.m. on the Civic Media Radio Network.
It is going to be mostly cloudy today with a high near 40 this afternoon. The wind will be out of the northwest at 5 to 15. Tonight, cloudy, low in the mid-20s. Tomorrow, it'll be mostly cloudy again with a high in the upper 30s to near 40. Sunday, cloudy with a high in the low 40s. I'm meteorologist Sean Cable. Right now, it's 39.
That's your WLCX Daily News Roundup from Civic Media. Subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you find your podcasts. Find more news at lacrosseeagle.com. The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.